The hum of the Resolute's engines was the only sound on the bridge as Captain Elena Drex stared at the vast emptiness of space, her fingers drumming a restless rhythm on the armrest of her command chair. Something was wrong. The ship's long-range sensors had picked up an anomaly, an object that defied all known classifications, drifting on the fringes of human-explored space. The readings were inconsistent, as if the object was cloaked in a shroud of distortion. Whatever it was massive, and it wasn't supposed to be there. Elena! Lieutenant Marco Vega's voice broke the silence, tinged with a hint of unease. We're closing in on the object, but the data we're getting doesn't make any sense. It's like it's not entirely here. Elena glanced at her second-in-command, his brow furrowed as he scoured the data scrolling across his console. Not entirely here? She echoed, her mind racing. Is it cloaked? Cloaked, phased, or something we've never seen before? Marco replied, tapping a few keys to bring up a holographic projection of the anomaly. The image flickered, refusing to stabilize, as if the object was rejecting their attempts to define it. Dr. Anna Lynn, the ship's astrobiologist, leaned in closer to the projection, her eyes wide with fascination. This isn't just a technological anomaly, she murmured, almost to herself. It's alive. Elena's gaze snapped to Anna. Alive? Are you saying it's a life form? Not exactly, Anna clarified, shaking her head. It's more like it's housing something alive. Something ancient and powerful. We could be looking at the remnants of a long-lost civilization. The tension on the bridge thickened as the implications of her words sank in. An ancient civilization. A relic from a time when humanity was still confined to Earth, possibly wielding technology far beyond their understanding. Suddenly, the ship's communication console lit up, an incoming message from the anomaly. Marco's fingers flew over the controls, decrypting the message as quickly as possible. It's a warning, he said, his voice low. They're telling us to leave, or face destruction. Elena's jaw tightened. A warning, not an attack. Whoever, or whatever, was on that ship didn't see them as an immediate threat. But the fact that they were willing to communicate suggested a possibility of negotiation, or perhaps testing. We're not going anywhere, she decided, her voice firm. We need to understand what we're dealing with. Marco, try to establish a direct link. Anna, keep scanning for any biological signatures. I want to know exactly what's on that ship. Marco hesitated, clearly torn between his duty and his concern. Captain, this could be a trap. We don't know what they're capable of. Elena met his gaze, her eyes steely with resolve. We're not here to back down at the first sign of danger. Earth is counting on us to secure this sector. If this is a threat, we need to assess it now, not later. The bridge fell silent again as the crew processed her words. Marco nodded, returning to his console with renewed determination. Anna's fingers danced over her controls, the glow of the screens reflecting in her focused eyes. Outside the Resolute, the anomaly loomed, its dark surface rippling like liquid metal. The ship inched closer, the distance between them shrinking with every passing second. As the tension on the bridge mounted, Elena felt the weight of her decisions pressing down on her. This was more than a simple reconnaissance mission. It was a test of humanity's readiness to face the unknown. Just as the Resolute closed the final gap, the anomaly pulsed with a sudden burst of energy. The ship shuddered, alarms blaring as the crew struggled to maintain control. Elena gripped the armrests of her chair, her heart pounding in her chest. This was it, the moment of truth. Would they survive this encounter, or had she led her crew into the jaws of an ancient and unfathomable enemy? The communication console crackled to life again, the voice from the anomaly clearer this time, resonating through the ship with a cold, calculated precision. You were warned, it said. Now you will be tested. The Resolute shuddered violently as the energy from the anomaly enveloped it, the lights flickering in response to the sudden strain on the ship's systems. Captain Elena Drex gripped the armrests of her chair, her eyes fixed on the view screen where the anomaly pulsed ominously, its surface now glowing with an eerie, dark radiance. Every instinct screamed at her to retreat, but she knew they had passed the point of no return. "Status report," Elena ordered, her voice cutting through the rising tension. Marco Vega's fingers flew over his console, his face pale but determined. "Shields are holding, but just barely. The energy wave disrupted our engines, and we're running on auxiliary power. Whatever that thing is, it's testing our limits." Dr. Anna Lynn leaned closer to her own console, her eyes wide as she studied the readings. "Captain, I'm detecting something new. It's as if the anomaly is scanning us, analyzing our ship, our systems, even our biology. This isn't just an attack, it's an assessment." Elena's mind raced. An assessment meant the entity was intelligent, capable of understanding and perhaps even communicating on a deeper level. But what was it looking for? Weaknesses? Strengths? Or something entirely different? "Marco, can we open a direct line of communication?" Elena asked, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. Marco nodded, his fingers moving swiftly across the controls. "I'm patching us through now, but there's heavy interference. I'll try to clear it up." The bridge fell into a tense silence as the crew awaited the response. Moments stretched into an eternity, each second amplifying the anxiety that gripped them all. Finally, the speakers crackled to life, and a voice emerged, a voice that was neither human nor entirely mechanical, resonating with a strange, layered harmony that sent chills down Elena's spine. "You have chosen to face the trial," the voice intoned, its words precise and deliberate. "Your species will be judged on its worthiness to survive. You may proceed, or you may withdraw." Elena exchanged a glance with Marco and Anara. The weight of the decision pressed heavily on her shoulders, but there was no room for hesitation. They had come too far, and humanity's fate could hinge on their actions here. "We will proceed," Elena said, her voice firm, projecting confidence she didn't entirely feel. The voice on the other end seemed to pause, as if considering her response. "Very well. The trial will commence. Survive, and you may continue your journey. Fail, and you will be eradicated." The communication cut off abruptly, and the view screen shifted, revealing a corridor of stars opening ahead of the Resolute. The anomaly's energy receded, leaving a clear path forward, yet the tension in the air was palpable. They were being led into the unknown, into a test they had no way of fully understanding. "Captain, what do we do?" Anna asked, her usually composed voice edged with apprehension. Elena didn't hesitate. "We follow the path. This is what we signed up for: exploration, discovery, and facing the unknown. Whatever this trial is, we'll face it together." The crew moved quickly, tension morphing into focused determination. Marco directed the ship forward, the engines humming back to life as they entered the star corridor. The view screen displayed the stars shifting, forming patterns that seemed deliberate, almost as if the universe itself was watching them. "Captain, I'm picking up massive energy fluctuations ahead," Marco reported. "We're approaching something. It's huge." Elena's eyes narrowed. On screen. The view screen zoomed in, revealing a colossal structure floating in the void. It was unlike anything they had ever encountered, a labyrinthine construct of shifting geometry and shimmering lights, pulsing with raw, ancient power. It was both beautiful and terrifying, a relic of a time long past, designed for a purpose they could only guess at. "This is it," Anna whispered, her voice filled with awe. "This is the trial." Elena stared at the structure, her mind working furiously. They had to approach this carefully, with both intelligence and caution. "Prepare all systems for immediate response," she ordered. "We don't know what's coming, but we need to be ready for anything. Marco, maintain course but slow us down as we approach. Anara, keep scanning for any signs of life or potential threats." The Resolute moved cautiously towards the structure, the distance closing rapidly as the crew prepared for the unknown. Each step forward heightened the tension, the air thick with anticipation and dread. As the ship drew nearer, the structure seemed to pulse in rhythm with the ship's movements, as if acknowledging their presence. Then, without warning, the structure emitted a beam of light, enveloping the Resolute in its glow. The ship shook violently, and alarms blared as the energy surged through the hull. Elena braced herself, her mind racing to make sense of what was happening. "Captain, we're being pulled in!" Marco shouted, struggling to maintain control of the ship. "The structure's got us in a tractor beam." "Hold steady!" Elena commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We're not out of this fight yet." The Resolute shook violently as it was pulled deeper into the structure's core, the gravitational forces threatening to tear the ship apart. Captain Elena Drex stood firm, her eyes locked on the viewscreen as they approached the heart of the labyrinthine construct. The ship's metal groaned under the strain, but the crew moved with precision, their training kicking in as they braced for the unknown. "Status report!" Elena barked, her voice sharp with command. Marco Vega's hands flew across the controls, sweat beading on his forehead. "Hull integrity is at 80%, but we're taking a beating. The tractor beam is pulling us faster now, we're headed straight for the center." Dr. Anna Lynn's voice was tense as she analyzed the incoming data. "Captain, the energy readings are off the charts. This structure is generating power far beyond anything we've encountered. If we don't find a way to stabilize the ship, we might not survive the impact." Elena clenched her fists, her mind racing through options. "Can we reverse the polarity of the shields? Maybe we can disrupt the beam long enough to regain control." Marco nodded, already making the necessary adjustments. "Reversing polarity now, stand by." The lights flickered as the ship's shields recalibrated, a low hum resonating through the hull. For a brief moment, the ship slowed, the tractor beam's hold weakening. But then, with a sudden surge of power, the beam intensified, pulling them even faster towards the structure's core. "It's not working!" Marco shouted, frustration evident in his voice. "Captain, I'm detecting a change in the structure," Anara said urgently. "The walls are closing in on us. This isn't just a trial of endurance, it's a trap." Elena's eyes narrowed. The entity controlling the structure was testing them, pushing them to their limits. But why? What was the purpose of this trial? Her thoughts raced, trying to piece together the puzzle. The voice had spoken of judgment, of testing their worthiness. Perhaps it wasn't just their technology or resilience being tested, but their resourcefulness, their ability to adapt and survive against impossible odds. "Elena!" Marco called out, his voice cutting through her thoughts. "I've got an idea, but it's risky." "Risky is all we have," Elena replied, her voice steady. "What's your plan?" Marco took a deep breath. "If we can overcharge the main reactor and release the energy in a controlled burst, it might disrupt the tractor beam and give us enough thrust to break free. But it'll drain our reserves, and if we miscalculate..." Elena didn't hesitate. "Do it. We don't have time for anything else." Marco's fingers moved swiftly over the controls, his face a mask of concentration. "Overcharging the reactor now, brace for impact." The hum of the ship's engines grew louder, a deep vibration resonating through the hull as the reactor powered up. The lights flickered wildly, the strain on the ship evident as it gathered energy for the burst. Elena gripped her chair, her heart pounding in her chest. This was it, their last chance. "Now, Marco!" she shouted. Marco hit the controls, and the Resolute shuddered violently as the energy burst from the reactor. A blinding flash of light filled the viewscreen as the ship surged forward, breaking free from the tractor beam's grasp. The sudden acceleration threw the crew against their restraints, the ship groaning as it fought against the overwhelming forces. "Shields holding at 60%, Marco reported, his voice strained. "We're clear of the beam, but the structure's still closing in. We need to find a way out, fast." Elena scanned the viewscreen, searching for an exit. The walls of the structure were indeed closing, the once vast corridor now a narrowing tunnel. But then she saw it, a small, dark opening on the far side of the chamber, just large enough for the ship to pass through. "There!" Elena pointed. "Marco, plot a course and get us through that opening." Marco adjusted the controls, the ship veering towards the exit. The walls closed in rapidly, the ship barely squeezing through the narrowing gap. As they passed through the opening, the structure behind them collapsed, the energy that had once held it together dissipating in a brilliant burst of light. The Resolute emerged into a vast, open space, the stars twinkling in the distance. The structure that had once surrounded them was gone, leaving only the void of space. The ship's systems stabilized, the tension on the bridge easing as they realized they were safe, for now. "We made it," Marco breathed, his voice filled with relief. Elena exhaled slowly, the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. "Good work, everyone. But we're not out of this yet. Anara, what's our status?" Anara quickly scanned the readings. "Shields are depleted, and the reactor is nearly dry. We're running on reserves, Captain. But I'm picking up something else. There's a signal coming from ahead. It's weak, but it's there." Elena frowned, her mind racing. Another test? Or a sign that they had passed the trial? "Can you identify the source?" "Not yet," Anara replied, her eyes narrowing as she focused on the signal. "But it's close. Whatever it is, it's guiding us." Elena nodded, her determination renewed. They had survived the trial, but their journey was far from over. The entity, or whatever controlled this trial, hadn't given up on them yet. "Marco, set a course for the signal. We follow where it leads." As the Resolute moved forward, the crew prepared for whatever awaited them next. The trial had tested their endurance, but Elena knew that the true test was still to come. The stakes were higher than ever, and failure was not an option. The Resolute drifted through the emptiness of space, the crew on edge as they neared the source of the mysterious signal. The silence on the bridge was thick with anticipation, every breath measured, every movement deliberate. Captain Elena Drex scanned the void ahead, her mind racing with possibilities. They had survived the trial of endurance, but whatever lay ahead would decide their fate. "Approaching the signal's origin, Captain," Marco Vega reported, his voice low but steady. Elena's eyes narrowed as she focused on the view screen. "Visuals?" The screen flickered, then dissolved into an image of a massive, ancient structure, far more imposing than the labyrinth they had escaped. It was a fortress of some kind, a citadel floating in the dark, its surface bristling with unknown technology. A soft, pulsing light emanated from its core, the source of the signal that had drawn them in. Dr. Anara Lynn leaned closer to her console, her fingers dancing over the controls. "The energy readings are even stronger here, Captain. This structure is alive. No, it's more than that. It's sentient." Elena's heart quickened. "Sentient? You mean it's aware of us?" Anara nodded, her expression grim. "I believe so. And it's communicating with us, though not in any language we understand. The signal, it's like a heartbeat, a pulse of intent." Marco's hands tightened on the controls. "If this thing is aware of us, what does it want?" Before Elena could respond, the signal changed. The pulse quickened, becoming more insistent, more focused. The lights on the bridge dimmed as the energy within the ship was drawn toward the structure, like a moth to a flame. "We're being pulled in," Marco said, his voice edged with alarm. "I can't counter it. Let it take us," Elena ordered, her voice calm despite the tension. "This is what we've been led to. We need to see this through." The Resolute glided towards the fortress, the pulse growing stronger with each passing second. As they neared the structure, a beam of light shot out from its core, enveloping the ship in a radiant glow. The crew shielded their eyes, the brilliance overwhelming their senses. Then, just as suddenly, the light faded, and they found themselves inside the citadel, the ship gently hovering in a vast, cathedral-like chamber. The bridge was bathed in an eerie, blue light. Elena felt a presence, a consciousness far greater than anything she had ever encountered. It pressed against her mind, not malevolent, but ancient and wise, as if it were measuring the weight of her soul. "Captain," Anara whispered, her voice trembling. It's judging us." Elena took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. "Then let it judge. We've come this far, we won't back down now." A deep, resonant voice echoed through the chamber, not through the ship's speakers, but directly into their minds. It was calm, yet commanding, carrying the weight of millennia. "You have endured the trial and reached the heart of the Sentinel. Your journey is one of perseverance, of will, of unity. But tell me, humans, what do you seek? Elena stood, facing the unseen entity. We seek understanding. We seek to prove that humanity is worthy of joining the greater cosmos, of standing among the stars as equals, not as conquerors. The voice was silent for a moment, as if contemplating her words. Then it spoke again, its tone softer, almost inquisitive. You speak of worthiness. Yet many have come before you with similar words, seeking power, seeking dominion. Why should you be any different? What makes humanity worthy of this trial's reward? Elena's thoughts raced, but her voice was steady as she replied. We are different because we learn from our past. We understand that true strength lies not in power, but in the bonds we forge, in the compassion we show, in our ability to adapt and survive against all odds. Humanity has faced extinction, has been tested by the universe itself, and we have emerged stronger. We seek not to dominate, but to coexist, to share in the knowledge and wisdom of those who came before. The silence that followed was suffocating. The crew waited, the tension on the bridge palpable. Then, slowly, the light in the chamber shifted, turning a deep, calming green. You have spoken truthfully, human. Your species has shown resilience, ingenuity, and a capacity for growth. You have passed the trial, but know this, the path ahead is fraught with challenges. The stars hold both wonder and peril. The reward you seek is not power, but knowledge, the knowledge to navigate the cosmos with wisdom and humility. Elena felt a wave of relief wash over her, but she remained focused. We accept this knowledge, and we vow to use it wisely. The light pulsed once more, and the ship's systems hummed with renewed energy. The fortress began to dissolve around them, its purpose fulfilled. As the Resolute drifted back into the void of space, the crew's tension eased, replaced by a sense of accomplishment, of having passed the test that would shape the future of their species. Captain, we're free, Marco said, his voice filled with awe. The Citadel, it's gone. Elena nodded, her gaze fixed on the stars ahead. Not gone, Marco. It's left us with what we came for. An understanding, a connection to something greater. Anra smiled, the tension in her face melting away. We did it. We proved ourselves. Elena allowed herself a small smile. Yes, we did. But this is just the beginning. We have a lot to learn, and a universe to explore. Let's make sure we're ready for whatever comes next. The Resolute powered up, its engines roaring to life. With newfound knowledge and a renewed sense of purpose, the crew set a course for home, ready to share what they had learned and to prepare for the journey that lay ahead.